Hello everybody, how's it going? Lord Josh here once again. Quite the unusual subject for me and this channel. I've never talked about UFOs or extraterrestrials before because I really only have one experience that I can talk about. And I just want to say up front, I'm not even sure if this is an alien experience. I don't know exactly what this is. I'm hoping that maybe I can get some feedback off of my viewers and maybe we can come up with some type of name or term that we can put to this experience. I'm not saying it is alien, but it's certainly not spiritual. I'm a ceremonial magician and I've been practicing occultism now for about 11 years, since 2007. And I work with spirits on a very regular basis, almost daily. And I can tell you that this did not feel the same. This felt more alien, for lack of a better word. So I want to take you back about 12 years ago to a family vacation I had in a place called Costa del Sol in Spain. I used to go on vacations a lot when I was younger. My family and I would go on maybe 3 to 4 vacations every year, traveling across Europe, spent a lot of time on boats and ships. My very first cruise was when I was 6 months old, which explains why I love so many nautical things today. So back then I was traveling around an awful lot, and the vacations have all kind of blurred in my mind, but I remember this one very distinctly. And so we went to Costa del Sol. We stayed in a very ritzy, very ostentatious 5-star hotel, which was right in the center of the tourist area. Very built up, urbanized area, very posh, very upper class. And we stayed there for about a week. And we were all enjoying the vacation so much, my father had the great idea. He said, why don't we just stay a few more days? I'll get some more money. I'll go to the bank and get some more money. And if we can't stay in this hotel, because it might be booked up, we'll find somewhere else in the area. So my father went to ask at the reception, can we stay here for another 2 to 3 days? But we'd only reserved the room for 7. So we couldn't stay there, and they had no other rooms in the whole place. So we tried the other hotels in the nearby area. Nowhere else was available. All the rooms were booked up. We couldn't stay. This was very last minute decision. And so we started to look at hotels and inns in the sort of outskirts. Couldn't find anything there. Eventually, we were about to give up and go home because we were really so close to just giving in. We found a place in an extremely rural and isolated area that was not for tourists. It was not for travelers. It was for more like people who were hiking out in the mountains. It was in the middle of absolute nowhere. And my father said, yeah, maybe this is the only place that we can stay in if we want to have a few extra days in Spain. So we all agreed, and we went down there. And let me tell you, what a shock, what a contrast. This place was barely a 2 to 3 star hotel. I can't quite remember, but it was really different to the big, ritzy 5-star establishment we've just left. I remember the interior had wood paneling on the walls, and it was sort of very 1970s and 80s, which I personally love, but it was very different than what we were used to staying in on our vacations. And this place, it was such a weird hotel. It was sort of like on a farm. I remember looking out on the balcony and there were goats and cows and chickens actually in the hotel grounds because it was based in a farming agricultural environment. So when you looked out of the window, all you saw was Spanish farmland. Very, very sort of rural. And so we stayed here for a few days, 2 or 3 I believe. And the first night, I don't remember if it happened the first or the second, but one of the nights whilst I was there, this is where things get really strange. So I'm in bed, I have my own separate bedroom, and I'm laying there. I wake up a few hours later to the sound of a mechanical noise, almost like the sound of a printer. You know when a printer is printing, it makes that juddering noise, that sort of mechanical sound. It's quite loud. Well, I heard that in the bedroom I was staying in. And I'm looking around thinking, where the hell is that coming from? Keep in mind, this is a new hotel. Maybe I'm not used to the noises, maybe it's a generator, I'm thinking. And then I hear it getting louder and louder. And then I look up to the edge, to the end of the bed, and I see this light sort of scanning my body. It's going from the top of my head down to my feet, and it's going up and down, and it's making noises as it's doing this. And I couldn't quite tell if the light was attached to something or where it was coming from. My vision zoned in a little bit, and I started to make out the shape of what I can only describe as a tripod. You know when you put a camera on, it has the 3 legs, and it looks sort of like a machine. And it was at the edge of the bed, and it had a light on top of it, and it was blocking the door, so I couldn't run out. Well, I did run out, but I was thinking, how on earth am I going to get past this thing? So I saw it, and I was frightened to death. I was really scared in the moment. And it had the top of the light, and it was shining, going up and down on my body. The tripod itself was metallic. It had a metal shine to it. And it was, I would probably say it was about 8 to 9 feet tall. It was a bit bigger than the door, which is really strange. And I thought, I've got to get out of here. I had this vibe, this feeling in my gut that this machine wasn't there for my best interest, that it was doing something sinister, and I didn't want it to be there. I knew it was up to no good. So I ran out the door. I got up out of the bed and I kind of jumped out of the door. And as I jumped out of the door, I actually hit my ankle on the metal frame of the tripod. I'm going to call it a tripod because I don't know what else to call it. And as I hit my leg, I got a good idea of the sturdiness and solidity of the object. You know when you feel something, or when you bash your leg on something, you get a good idea of how thick it is, how strong it is, if it's easily moved. This thing did not budge an inch. It was solid and it was set in place. So I ran out, I went into my parents' room, and I didn't tell them what was in there. I just said, there's this strange thing in there. It's shining a light at me and it's making weird noises. Come in quickly, come on, come on, come on. So they're all dazed, thinking, what the hell's going on? They don't believe me, obviously. And we go back into the room, and it's gone. Now, by this point, you're probably thinking, well, this is just Lord Josh having a dream when he was young because he's in a strange hotel. Well, here's where things get even stranger. We look down into the balcony area, because my room had a balcony, and the door is slightly open, just ever so slightly. I didn't open it. It wasn't open when I left the room. So that door had been opened during the 15-20 second time period that I'd left to go into my parents' room. Even stranger than that, on the floor were these track marks where it looks like something had been dragged across the floor, but the actual stains that were on the floor looked oily. They looked fresh and wet, and it wasn't mud. It was like oil, like machine oil. And you could see this from the start of the door, which is the entrance to my bedroom, all the way to the end of the balcony. And then actually over the railing, there was this strange, sticky, oily substance. It was black, and it was stained across the carpet and across the balcony floor. It wasn't just me who had witnessed this oily substance on the floor. My parents both saw it, and they could both verify it at some point. I could probably get them on a video. They could talk about it as well. But obviously, I'm the one who had the experience. Now, the only reason that I'm calling it alien is because of this. It gets even deeper now. So, about 2 or 3 years later, 2 or 3 years go by, and I'd really totally forgotten about this experience. I really had. I'd moved on from it. At the time, it scared the crap out of me, but I just forgot about it, and I moved on. And I didn't think too much about it. It didn't change my life. You often hear other people talking about their experiences on YouTube. They say, oh, it changed my life and it got me into UFOs, or it got me into researching about extraterrestrials. This really didn't. This didn't change anything. This was just an isolated experience that happened once, kind of an anomaly. I couldn't explain it. I never really knew how to articulate it properly because of my age at that time. I didn't know anyone else who had gone through it. So I just kind of forgot. And one day, as synchronicity would have it, after I started to get into the occult a little bit more, I was reading by chance an article in a magazine. It was one of those trashy magazines, I must say, but still I read it. And in there it said, strange activity in Costa del Sol Hotel. Hotelers claim to have been abducted or visited by aliens. I can't quite remember exactly what it said, but it was the exact same hotel that I stayed at. Someone else also had a visit. I believe it was a visit from an extraterrestrial entity, but they had more of a complete sort of communication with some type of being. So they claim in this article. But after reading that, about 2 or 3 years later after my experience, I hadn't thought about these things for years, and it came back into my mind. I was thinking, wow, I remember when I had that experience in that hotel. It kind of matches up to what I'm reading here. And I'll have to find that article. This is years ago, but once I find it, I'll put pictures of it up on Twitter. But that is my extent of my alien experiences. Pretty freaky. I still can't really explain it properly because I don't understand enough about aliens, because I don't research it at all. I'm more into magic and occultism and Chinese history and Taoism and Mayan mythology, but I must admit UFOs and aliens do fascinate me, and I suppose it's something that I'm going to have to look into a bit deeper. And I also want to know if anybody else has had any experiences like this. Usually people talk about seeing lights and they see them in the sky, or they talk about hearing things. I actually felt something. I actually had something in close proximity in the room I was staying in. And I actually had evidence to back it up by looking at the tracks on the floor that this machine left behind. This wasn't a living being. This wasn't a flesh and blood entity, and it wasn't a spirit. It was a robotic machine, which is why I wonder, what on earth do you call this? Now, some people who I've spoke to about this say that maybe this machine was acting as a scout for an alien craft which is in a nearby location, and it's scouting the area, and it's on reconnaissance, and maybe it's scanning the life forms in the area, and it's relaying information back to the mothership. Who knows? I'm not saying that's the case, but it's certainly interesting, and it also makes sense. In a rural area, farm animals, I don't think a lot of people stayed at that hotel, so we were definitely out of place, and it took an interest in me. Who knows how long it was scanning me before I woke up? Hard to say. So please do tell me about your alien experience. Maybe we can piece some of the puzzle pieces together and hopefully try to understand what these things actually mean. Was it a message? Was it a sign? Like I say, it wasn't life-changing, but it certainly stuck in my mind after reading that article. Sort of refreshed my memory. So thanks a lot for watching, everybody. Take care. I'll see you soon.